It looked like a posh British comedy about butlers, maids and stiff upper lips. But YouRangMLord was much weirder than it seemed. Behind the polished teapots and perfect manners, there were creative clashes, secret meanings, and production quirks that made this sitcom one of the strangest gems in British TV history. Fact 1.
Well, the men wear their uniforms and we're allowed to wear pretty dresses.
Most people don't realise YouRangMLord was born out of pure experimentation. The creators, Jimmy Perry and David Croft, had already found success with Hyder High and Dad's Army, but they wanted to push British comedy somewhere darker, slower and oddly theatrical. Instead of short sketches and bright colours, they wrote long, moody scenes filled with servants, lords and social satire. It felt more like a stage play than a sitcom. The weirdest part, it wasn't meant to be funny all the time. Perry once admitted they wanted to make viewers feel uncomfortable while laughing. Some fans were confused by the serious tone, while others found it fascinating. A comedy that dared to be melancholic. The show's running time was unusually long for a sitcom, almost twice as slow as what audiences were used to. That gave the series a unique rhythm, full of awkward silences and sharp social commentary. The creators called it period comedy realism, something totally new for British TV. It broke every sitcom rule, but somehow that weirdness became its charm. YouRangMLord didn't just make people laugh, it made them think.
Forget to bring the bottle back.
Oh, I won't. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Fact 2.
Right, everybody, back on the Shadowbang, and this time the family will sit with the servants.
At first glance, the show seemed like light-hearted fun, but its real theme was class war disguised as comedy. Perry and Croft used every character to represent the absurdity of Britain's class system. Lord Meldrum's family lived in opulence, while their servants barely survived downstairs. Yet everyone was trapped by duty. The humour came from watching both sides fail to understand each other. Beneath the jokes about manners and money was a biting critique of privilege and inequality. The writers even borrowed details from real aristocratic households of the 1920s. The butler, Alf Stokes, symbolised the working class fighting for respect, while the upper class characters embodied clueless entitlement. The result was strangely realistic, and sometimes uncomfortably so. Critics said it was the only British comedy that could make Marx laugh. Despite its vintage costumes, the show's message felt surprisingly modern. It was less about tea and crumpets, and more about power, hypocrisy, and the people stuck in between. Hidden under the laughter was a mirror reflecting how Britain still worked, and still does.
You're right. They can cook it, you can bring it round, and James can hot it up.
Be a good experience for everybody.
Fact 3.
That Mr. Teddy's a monster. No woman's safe. You'd have it cut off.
Here's where things get weirdly emotional. Before YouRangMLord, actress Yvonne Antrobus had appeared in several Perry and Croft productions, but the creators wanted a performer who could carry the emotional complexity of both humour and sadness, something reminiscent of Eutha Joyce from George and Mildred. In many ways, Joyce's tragic passing haunted the creators. They admired her ability to blend heartbreak and comedy, something YouRangMLord needed desperately. Joyce had been considered for a role years earlier in one of Perry's earlier concepts for a class-based sitcom. After her death, the team infused parts of her essence into characters like Lady Lavender and Mabel. You can see her influence in the dry wit and sharp delivery of the female cast. Even Brian Murphy, Joyce's real-life co-star, was approached for guest appearances. The energy of YouRangMLord carries that bittersweet tone she perfected, laughter with a lump in your throat. It's not often a comedy becomes a kind of tribute, but in a weird, unspoken way, this one did. The show may have been set in the 1920s, but it was haunted by ghosts from British television's golden age.
I'm so boring unless everybody gets drunk.
Fact 4.
And that man, he's an adulterer.
It looks a bit overcast. We'll use the key.
The show's fashion wasn't just period accurate, it was full of hidden meaning. Costume designer Sue Thompson used colour and texture to show status, morality, and even personality shifts. The upstairs characters were always draped in creams, golds, and silvers, tones of luxury and purity. Downstairs, the servants wore muted browns, greys, and blacks to symbolise invisibility. But here's the weird part. Whenever a servant rebelled or gained confidence, their costumes subtly brightened. Alf's suits grew sharper. Ivy's dresses gained colour. Even Lady Lavender's wild outfits became a metaphor for the chaos of wealth without reason. Thompson once revealed that the idea came from silent films, where colour defined character before dialogue did. The attention to detail was so extreme that fabrics were aged by hand to look authentically worn. These tiny choices gave every frame a sense of story, even when no one was speaking. It was visual storytelling hidden in plain sight. Most viewers never noticed, but that's exactly what made it brilliant.
If everybody thought as you do, there'd be no crime, and I'd be out of a job.
And we'd save a lot on cherry cake.
Fact 5.
I'll take care of your racket, sir.
And I'll hold your balls.
When You Rang, My Lord ended in 1993, it left behind something far stranger than anyone expected. In Eastern Europe, it became a massive hit years later, especially in Hungary and Poland, where audiences connected deeply with its themes of class and rebellion. It's still rerun there today, often subtitled with surprisingly serious cultural commentary. The show also inspired a handful of foreign remakes and unofficial adaptations, some set in modern-day mansions. In Britain, though, it developed a cult following rather than mainstream fame. Fans on forums and conventions trade trivia about lost scripts, deleted scenes, and props still hidden in private collections. Some call it the weird cousin of Downton Abbey, both affectionate and accurate. The humour was slower, stranger, and smarter than its peers, and that made it unforgettable. In hindsight, it's one of the most unusual experiments in British comedy, a show that dared to mock the elite while dressing them in silk. Its weirdness wasn't a flaw. It was the reason You Rang, My Lord became something timeless, eccentric, and quietly revolutionary.
He might be charged with writing an obscene word. The desk sergeant's looking it up.
Fact 6.
I know what's going on. The servants know what's going on. It's only a matter of time before Sir Rafe finds out.
Most sitcoms in the 1980s ran for a snappy 25 minutes. Quick laughs, quick exits. But You Rang, My Lord defied that rule completely, running almost an hour per episode. The pacing was slower, the jokes more deliberate, and the tone unusually serious. Many critics at first called it too long for comedy, but the creators argued it was comedy drama, not farce. The extended runtime let characters breathe, revealing layers of emotion rarely seen in sitcoms. Scenes could shift from slapstick to tragedy in seconds. It felt like Downton Abbey before Downton Abbey, with punchlines. Some episodes had intricate subplots involving every servant and master, woven like a soap opera. That length gave it an almost cinematic feel. The show's rhythm confused some audiences but enchanted others who loved its slow burn storytelling. Viewers began to treat it less like a sitcom and more like an event. The long format became one of its weirdest and most daring creative decisions. In an era of laugh tracks and studio lights, You Rang, My Lord dared to take its time and trust its audience's patience, and that made it quietly revolutionary.
We could have kept it quiet. We understand the problems of the gentry down at the station.
Have you got a price list?
Fact 7.
Is it my good looks or height? Perhaps it's the way I'm built or how I hold myself.
Unlike most sitcoms of its time, You Rang, My Lord was filmed with an unusually cinematic approach. The lighting was dimmer, the colours richer, and the camera movements smoother. It looks more like a BBC period drama than a studio comedy. The creators wanted to break free from the stage play look that dominated British TV. They used multi-camera setups and deep focus shots, giving every scene a sense of grandeur. Some viewers even thought it was filmed in real mansions, but it wasn't. The interiors were painstakingly built sets that recreated the atmosphere of a 1920s household down to the dust on the furniture. The mix of realism and parody made it strangely immersive. You could almost smell the candles and feel the echo of footsteps in the hall. The decision to use cinematic lighting for comedy was unheard of then. Perry and Croft believed audiences would take the humour more seriously if it looked real. The result was a show that looked expensive, but was made on a modest budget. Its weird, hybrid aesthetic made it feel both theatrical and timeless. a visual trick that set it apart from every sitcom before or after.
Oh, don't be upset, my lord. It doesn't go anyway.
Fact 8.
Well, the men wear their uniforms and we're allowed to wear pretty dresses.
Many of the actors in YouRangMLord led surprisingly different lives off screen. Paul Shane, who played Alf Stokes, was once a miner before turning to comedy. His rough Yorkshire humour contrasted beautifully with the upper-class setting. Geoffrey Holland, known for his gentle, polished delivery, was actually a punk music enthusiast in real life. Catherine Rabette, who portrayed Sissy Meldrum, had studied classical dance and modelled before joining the show. The strangest twist was that several cast members had worked together in High and Oh, Dr. Beeching, meaning they were practically a family troupe. Their chemistry came from years of shared rehearsal rooms and touring stages. Between takes, they joke in character, blurring the lines between fiction and reality. Some even brought their own vintage props and accessories to make scenes feel authentic. The weird mix of backgrounds created something magical. The working class playing the aristocracy, the polished actors playing the poor. It was British irony at its finest. The result? A cast that felt eerily real because they were all in some way pretending, just like their characters.
Jerry, but I believe in democracy, and that's why I told the servants they got to vote for her.
Fact 9.
There are 2 thumbprints on the radiator just adjacent to the mascot.
Oh, her on them and rub them off, Jay.
Hidden among the show's regulars were some surprising guest stars who went on to bigger fame. Future comedy icons and stage legends often appeared for a single episode, playing eccentric aristocrats or hapless servants. One early season guest would later become a regular face on The Vicar of Dibley. Another had a cameo before landing a long-running role in EastEnders. The weird thing is, most of these appearances were never properly credited. Archival confusion and missing production notes have left fans debating who was who. Some foreign broadcasts even cut guest scenes entirely to shorten episodes. Dedicated fans have spent years trying to reconstruct full cast lists from VHS recordings. It's like a comedic version of a lost film mystery. These forgotten faces give the series an extra layer of charm, the sense that you might recognise someone famous but can't quite place them. It's one of those hidden delights that rewards die-hard fans and collectors. In the strange, sprawling world of YouRangMLord, even the smallest character might have gone on to make TV history.
It's bad enough selling what we do sell without selling that.
Fact 10.
Who sat behind that desk telling me to pull myself together?
This one's truly weird. Crew members swore that the soundstage where YouRangMLord was filmed was haunted. Lights flickered on empty sets, props moved overnight, and unexplained noises echoed in the corridors. One late-night rehearsal was stopped after a tea tray suddenly fell with no one near it. Some joked it was the ghost of a former butler making his presence known. Others blamed faulty wiring or overworked crew nerves. But the stories spread, and soon even cast members refused to stay alone on set after dark. Paul Shane once told an interviewer, "If it was a ghost, he had good timing. He only ever showed up when we were late." The legend became part of the show's lore, whispered during breaks like a running gag. Whether real or not, it added a spooky mystique to the production. Fans still talk about the Meldrum Mansion ghost as if it were a real haunting. In a show about old British houses full of secrets, maybe it's fitting that one more stayed behind.
He's all right at parties and playing the giddy goat, but when it comes to spooning, he's a washout.
Fact 11.
His wife's been fornicatoring with his lordship.
When YouRangMLord was offered to American networks, executives were baffled. They loved British humour, but found this one too quiet, too slow, and too polite. The class-based jokes and subtle satire didn't translate easily across the Atlantic. While Are You Being Served and Keeping Up appearances thrived in the US, YouRangMLord left most viewers puzzled. The idea of servants treating their masters with ironic respect confused American audiences. Test screenings reportedly ended in polite silence, the very thing British viewers found hilarious. The show's tone, full of irony and discomfort, didn't fit the American sitcom rhythm. PBS eventually aired it in limited markets, where it gained a small cult following among Anglophiles. Those who did get it absolutely adored it, calling it the strangest, most elegant sitcom ever made. But for most Americans, it was just too weird, too British, too clever, too slow. And that's exactly why it became a treasure for fans who appreciated its subtle genius.
Why not? She's been hanging around since 1912.
Fact 12.
Slithery. I wonder you don't slip out of bed.
Beneath the comedy, the writers packed in real historical detail. The show's timeline was rooted in post-World War I Britain, a time when the upper class was crumbling and domestic service was fading fast. Perry and Croft wanted to capture that shift through humour, the collapse of old hierarchies disguised as farce. Each episode reflected social changes, women's independence, the decline of nobility, the rise of workers' rights. Lord Meldrum's world was already dying, but no one in the house could admit it. The jokes about servants knowing too much hinted at the growing power of the lower classes. Alf Stokes wasn't just a cheeky butler, he was the future mocking the past. Even the economic references, rationing, inflation, and layoffs were historically accurate. The more you know about the 1920s, the more layered the humour becomes. It's a show built on cultural memory disguised as laughter. Few sitcoms have ever hidden history so smartly behind comedy. In that sense, YouRangMLord was weirdly educational and ahead of its time.
He might be charged with writing an obscene word. The desk sergeant's looking it up.
Fact 13.
Because you're setting them all the wrong way round.
Years after YouRangMLord ended, Downton Abbey exploded in popularity. Suddenly, fans noticed eerie similarities. The setting, the themes, even the upstairs-downstairs structure. Some claimed Downton simply polished what YouRangMLord had already done with humour. Julian Fellowes, creator of Downton Abbey, admitted he'd watched the show and admired its authenticity. But he also wanted to create a more serious, glamorous version. British critics cheekily called Downton the posh remake of YouRangMLord without the jokes. The rivalry was mostly fan-made, but it sparked endless online debates. Some viewers still argue that YouRangMLord was braver, tackling class politics with more honesty. Others say it paved the way for Downton's global success. Either way, it's clear that the DNA of Perry and Croft's masterpiece lives on. Without YouRangMLord, there might never have been a Downton Abbey. A weird twist of fate, the parody that inspired The Prestige.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know it. Anyway, you won't let me do a poem.
Fact 14.
Trying to control your life, I was trying to get you to behave in a responsible manner.
When the final episode aired in 1993, fans were stunned. It didn't feel like an ending at all. Several storylines were left unresolved and characters simply drifted away, as if time had moved on without them. Perry and Croft said they intended it that way. Life upstairs and downstairs never really ends, but viewers expected closure, a wedding, a firing, something grand. Instead, the show faded out with quiet goodbyes and unfinished business. Some believed more episodes were planned but cancelled due to declining ratings. Others thought the open ending was symbolic, the world changing while the servants stayed behind. To make things weirder, the BBC reran episodes out of order, adding to the confusion. Fans wrote letters demanding a proper conclusion, but it never came. The ambiguity became part of its charm. That quiet fade to black felt strangely poetic, like the final chime of a dinner bell echoing through an empty house. It wasn't satisfying, but it was unforgettable.
If I say knickers, I get into trouble, but if she says knickers...
That will do, Ivy.
Fact 15.
Then look very closely. The quickness of the hand deceives the eye.
Decades later, YouRangMLord has become one of the most quietly beloved cult shows in British television. It's endlessly rewatched, analysed and memed by fans who adore its weird mix of elegance and absurdity. Younger audiences are discovering it through streaming and calling it the strangest, smartest sitcom ever made. Conventions still host panels discussing its characters and hidden meanings. Props and costumes occasionally appear in auctions, fetching ridiculous prices. devices. Even academics have studied its class commentary in university papers. What was once considered a niche, overly long sitcom has become a cultural artifact. It represents a time when British comedy dared to experiment. Every weird decision, the tone, the length, the style, helped it stand apart. In an era of predictable formats, YouRangMLord remains gloriously unpredictable. It's more than nostalgia, it's legacy through eccentricity. The show may have ended, but its quirky spirit still lingers, like laughter echoing down a long, empty corridor.